8 weeks. That was how far away my wedding was supposed to be, when my fiancé sat across from me at our kitchen table and said very calmly, "I think we should postpone the wedding." Not cancel. Postpone. Like this was a minor scheduling conflict, like the venue wasn't booked, the catering wasn't paid, the honeymoon wasn't planned down to the hour, like I hadn't already chosen the music I'd walk down the aisle to. "I'm just not sure anymore," he added, twisting the engagement ring he gave me around his finger. The room didn't spin. There was no dramatic noise in my ears, just a sudden, hollow drop in my stomach, like missing a step you didn't know was there. Not sure about what? About me? About us? About the life we were already halfway living? I remember noticing stupid details instead of reacting the way people expect. The way his eyes wouldn't meet mine. The way his voice stayed gentle, rehearsed. The way he looked relieved when I didn't start crying. I should have known then, but I was the kind of woman who believed in giving space, in respecting honesty, in not forcing someone to love you if they needed time to think. So I said the thing that probably saved him weeks of guilt. "I respect your honesty." His head snapped up, surprised. "You're not mad?" "I'm disappointed," I said carefully, "but I'd rather you be sure than marry me out of obligation." He hugged me after that. Tight. Too tight. His cheek pressed against my hair like he needed comfort from the very person he was destabilizing. "You're such a good woman," he whispered. "That's what makes this so hard." We agreed I'd stay at the house and he'd go stay with his sister for a while. A few days, maybe a week. Time to clear his head. That night, while the house felt too quiet to breathe in, I called vendors. I postponed deposits. I negotiated dates. I did the unglamorous work of putting a life on hold. I told myself this was what mature adults did. I met him 5 years earlier, in the most forgettable way possible. A mutual friend's birthday dinner. A crowded table. Too much noise. He sat across from me, polite, attentive, asking thoughtful questions instead of trying to impress anyone. When the bill came, he split it without comment. When I mentioned my job, he didn't make a joke or change the subject. He listened. At the time, that felt rare. I was 32, not reckless, not dramatic, not looking for fireworks. I wanted steadiness. I wanted someone who showed up on time, who remembered what mattered to me, who didn't make love feel like a performance. He felt safe, solid, dependable. Our relationship unfolded quietly. No big declarations, no toxic highs, just routines that slowly knitted themselves into my life. Sunday grocery runs, shared playlists in the car, dinners where we talked about work and families and the future like it was something we were naturally walking toward. When he proposed a year earlier, it wasn't flashy. No crowd, no viral video, just a small restaurant, my favorite dessert, and a ring he'd clearly spent time choosing. He looked nervous when he asked, like the moment mattered to him. I said yes without hesitation. That's what made it easy to believe we were building something real. Our families blended early. Holidays together. Birthdays. Long conversations around dining tables where people talked too loud and laughed too easily. His cousin, his female cousin, and my cousin by extension, was always around. Friendly, familiar, a little too comfortable sometimes, but family often is. I noticed things back then, if I'm being honest. Lingering looks I dismissed. Jokes that crossed lines just enough to feel off. The way his cousin always seemed to know when I'd be out of the house, showing up unexpectedly with some excuse about borrowing tools or dropping something off. I told myself I was being paranoid. Planning the wedding became our shared project. Venues, tastings, guest lists, late nights with spreadsheets open on the kitchen counter. I paid attention to details. He let me handle most of it, trusting me completely. I mistook that trust for love. Looking back, there were moments that didn't sit right. Charges on our shared credit card labeled as wedding stress shopping. His cousin suddenly being secretive about someone special she was seeing. My fiancé insisting we keep things low-key around extended family because not everyone needs to know our business. I believed him, because the version of him I loved was calm, reassuring, reasonable. The man who held my hand when I was anxious. The man who told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. The kind of man you don't suspect. When he asked for space, it fit the pattern I thought I knew. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't cold. He said he needed time to think because marriage was serious. So I stepped back. I let him go stay with his sister. I respected boundaries. I kept moving forward without pushing, without questioning too much, without listening to the quiet voice in my chest that said something wasn't right. I didn't know yet that while I was rearranging dates and calming worried vendors, he was rearranging his life entirely with someone else. Someone who already knew my house, my routines, my wedding date. And all of it was happening while I was still wearing the ring he gave me, believing the lie that space meant honesty and silence meant loyalty. The first thing that changed wasn't his behavior. It was my body. A tightness in my chest I couldn't explain, the way my stomach clenched every time my phone buzzed. How silence suddenly felt louder than any argument ever could. My fiancé texted just enough to seem considerate. Hope you're okay. Still thinking things through. This is hard for me too. Hard. That word sat wrong every time I read it. Then there were the inconsistencies. The sister he was supposedly staying with mentioned, casually, that she hadn't seen him much. He's been out a lot, she said. Probably just clearing his head. Clearing it where? I noticed our shared credit card activity more closely. Charges that didn't line up with anything we'd discussed. Wedding-related expenses at places I didn't recognize. Then there was his cousin. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. References to moments I didn't remember being there for. Once, weeks before the postponement, I caught them standing too close on the porch, their heads bent together, their laughter low. When they noticed me, they stepped apart quickly. I told myself I was projecting. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't want to accuse without proof. I didn't want to destroy something that might still be salvageable. So I waited. Late one afternoon, while working from home, I opened the Ring Doorbell app for the most mundane reason imaginable, to check when a package had been delivered earlier in the week. I wasn't looking for answers. I tapped a date. Thursday, 2 p.m., the exact window when I'd been at work. I watched the clip. His cousin walked up to our front door like she belonged there. No hesitation, no knock. The door opened from the inside. My fiancé stepped into frame. She smiled, and then she kissed him. Not confusion, not a mistake. It was deliberate, close. His hands on her waist, her body leaning into him like this had happened before. I rewound it, watched it again, then again. It didn't change. I scrolled back. Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. She had been coming over for months. And then I found the clip that broke whatever hope I still had. The two of them standing on our porch, shoulder to shoulder, looking at his phone together. A wedding venue website. The Oakmont Estate. A booking form, a highlighted date. October 14th. Our wedding date. I called my lawyer friend. Hypothetically, I said, if someone discovered their fiancé was sleeping with his cousin and planning a wedding behind their back, what would you recommend? Document everything, he said quietly. And I'm sorry. That was the moment it stopped being heartbreak. It became strategy. After I hung up with my lawyer friend, I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where my fiancé had asked for space, and let the silence press in on me. My phone lay face down beside my coffee, still buzzing faintly from notifications I wasn't ready to read. I didn't cry. Not yet. I felt methodical. Like something in me had switched off the part that begged for explanations and switched on the part that took inventory. Evidence. Timelines. Money. Exposure. I opened a notebook and started writing dates. Times. Clips. Charges. Because once someone lies to your face with that much ease, emotion becomes a liability. My fiancé texted me that evening. Thinking of you. This is really hard for me. I love you. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I understand. Take all the time you need. The words felt foreign, but I knew something he didn't yet. Patience was no longer about respect. It was about positioning. Over the weekend, I became someone I barely recognized. I played detective. Quietly. Thoroughly. I checked statements. Charges at bridal shops I'd never stepped foot in. Catering tastings I hadn't attended. A photographer I didn't recognize. All labeled under vague descriptions he'd used before. Wedding stress, research, surprise planning. I found a private social media story his cousin had forgotten I could still see through an old account. Quotes about true love, timing, following your heart. Her sister commenting heart emojis. So happy for you. By Monday, my hands no longer shook when I watched the footage. That scared me more than the betrayal itself. I took a sick day from work and told my fiancé I'd be busy. 20 minutes later, his cousin's car pulled into my driveway. I watched from a cafe nearby as they spent hours in my house, my bed, my life. When they left holding hands, something in my chest finally cracked, not into grief, but resolve. I followed them. I watched them walk into a bridal store together. 40 minutes later, she emerged glowing, carrying a garment bag like a promise. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream. I didn't warn anyone. I went home, closed the door, and made one more call. This isn't hypothetical anymore, I said. I'm going to tell the truth. Publicly. Legally. There was a pause. Then, when's the appointment? That's when I knew. This wasn't about catching them. It was about letting them walk straight into the consequences of everything they'd done. Once I decided not to confront them immediately, everything sharpened. Every message from my fiancé felt rehearsed. Every pause between texts felt intentional. Tuesday night, he came back to the house to grab more things. I knew he was coming. He texted first. Polite, careful, like a guest asking permission to enter a place he had already violated. I just need a few things. I won't stay long. I cleaned the kitchen before he arrived, not because I wanted to impress him, but because I needed control over something. The house still smelled like his shampoo. His shoes were still by the door. He walked in like nothing had changed. You look tired, he said, setting his bag down. I haven't been sleeping well. Neither had I, but I didn't say it. He hugged me, actually hugged me. His arms wrapped around my shoulders, his cheek against my neck. I stood there stiffly, counting my breaths, reminding myself not to recoil. I needed him comfortable, unaware. I'm sorry I'm putting you through this, he whispered. You deserve better. The irony nearly took my breath away. Funny you should say that, I replied lightly. He pulled back, confused. What? Nothing, I said, just agreeing with you. He didn't push. He never pushed when it mattered. He packed methodically. Clothes, toiletries. Then, without hesitation, he reached into the drawer and pulled out the lingerie I'd bought for our honeymoon. Folded it neatly, added it to the pile. I watched without comment. At the door, he hesitated. Whatever happens, he said softly, I want you to know you're a good woman. You're safe. Safe. There it was. You should go, I said. He left. The next afternoon, I arrived at the Oakmont estate 15 minutes early, on purpose. My lawyer walked in beside me, calm and unbothered, carrying a briefcase that weighed more than their lies ever could. At exactly 2:05 p.m., they walked in together, arm in arm. She was wearing the engagement ring he'd given me, shifted to her right hand, like that somehow made it less incriminating. The event coordinator greeted them warmly. So excited to plan the Morrison-Davidson wedding, she said. That was my cue. Actually, I said, stepping forward, it was supposed to be the Thompson-Davidson wedding. The color drained from my fiancé's face. His cousin froze. What are you doing here? He demanded. I met his eyes calmly. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. The room shifted. My lawyer stepped forward, introducing himself, explaining there were serious concerns regarding fraudulent use of deposits and misrepresentation. I pulled out my phone. Ring footage, receipts, dates, amounts. This, I said evenly, is my fiancé and his cousin entering my home while he was supposedly taking space. And this, I scrolled, turned the screen toward them, is the wedding date they tried to book, the same one I paid for. His cousin finally spoke. I can explain. Please don't, I said. You've explained enough. What followed wasn't chaos. It was collapse. Bookings revoked, voices lowered. A manager called. As they were escorted out, his cousin hissed, This is family. You didn't have to humiliate us. You humiliated yourselves, I replied. I just stopped covering for you. The silence afterward was worse than the confrontation. I went home alone. The messages came fast after that. You didn't have to do that. This should have stayed in the family. You embarrassed them. Them. Not me. His aunt left a voicemail, screaming about how I'd ruined her son's happiness. My mother called next. She says you went too far, my mom said carefully. It was my future, I replied. He just thought he could steal it. When my mom arrived and I showed her everything, the footage, the receipts, she got angry. She called his aunt herself. That night, my fiancé showed up, standing on the porch like he belonged there. I just want to talk, he said. I didn't open the door. You humiliated me, he said. You didn't have to do it that way. There was no other way, I replied. You were never going to tell the truth. I was going to, he insisted. Eventually. Eventually. That word landed heavier than any insult. I loved you, I said, and you stood in my house with your cousin and planned a wedding on my wedding date. Silence. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, he said. How did you mean for it to happen? I asked. Before or after I finished paying for everything? He didn't answer. The turning point didn't come with relief. It came with clarity. I stopped asking why. Instead, I asked what now. I met my lawyer again. We made calls, deposits refunded, contracts dissolved. Each confirmation email felt like air returning to my lungs. His family tried to intervene. Her father asked to meet me. He opened his checkbook. What will it take to make this go away? There isn't enough money in the world, I replied. Later, his cousin showed up with her mother and sister. I deserve a chance to explain, she said. No, I replied, you deserve consequences. They left in silence. For the first time, I didn't feel hollow. I felt solid. The fallout rippled. Family gatherings fractured. Vendors whispered. Invitations quietly disappeared. I wasn't enjoying their downfall. I was just done. 3 weeks later, my life settled into something quieter. Not peaceful, quiet. They're still together, apparently. That's what the family grapevine says. Venues won't touch them. Photographers cancel. Caterers don't return calls. Reputations travel faster than apologies. He tried once more to reconcile. You ended this over betrayal, I told him. I just stopped pretending it didn't happen. I sold the engagement ring, donated the money. I took a solo trip. I ran into her once. I'm sorry, she said. I know. Do you forgive me? No, she cried. I didn't stay. Here's what I learned. Betrayal doesn't always arrive with cruelty. Sometimes it wears kindness. Sometimes it calls itself honesty, while rearranging your life behind your back. When people show you who they are, believe them. Protect yourself, protect your future. They wanted secrecy. They got consequences. Me, I got my dignity, my boundaries, and proof that survival doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. That's enough.